Hi everyone, welcome back and thank you for coming to check out another video. This time we're going to be doing part 2 of the live edit, as the last one ran on a little bit long and I thought I should probably split it in two. So, back to James Porter's story, Gaijin. Let's get cracking. Welcome back, and let's carry on with the live edit of James Porter's Gaijin. Just a quick disclaimer in case you haven't checked out the first part of the video, but please do like and subscribe, check out my Patreon and my books, as I don't monetize this channel and I would really appreciate you checking out my work. Let's get into it. So, when last we left our hero, we had cleaned up the prologue, and we'd actually cut quite a lot of exposition out of the prologue and made that much shorter. There was a lot of world information in there that was just a little bit heavy for a prologue, and so we cut that out, and hopefully Jim will be able to put that back in at important points throughout the story. Then we got on to chapter 1, where the first part of the chapter was a little bit dry, and we weren't really grabbed by the character, we weren't really intrigued by it as much as I would hope. So we've changed this around a little bit, and we have added in some more characterization for the hero, the main character, it's just easy to say main character, and we have built up to this point where we are just now. So, Hero had just met his supervisor in this story for the first time, and obviously they do not get along. Hero had said nothing. He'd simply readjusted his glasses on the bridge of his nose and turned back to his terminal. And we were about to see why Hero has a illicit Wi-Fi connection in his head, and why he has all these firewalls, and why he is worried about the behavior of hackers, which has been something that Jim has been building up throughout the first chapter. So, I say so a lot. I apologize, but I do say so a lot. Hero waited 10 minutes to make sure that the office was empty. When he was certain, he set to work. Okay. Not bad that Hero obviously waits to make sure that everybody's cleared out. He's pretty sure that his boss was the last person to leave. Mindy, I believe her name was. But we're not sure what he does to make sure. We're not sure kind of how much work Hero is putting into making sure that he's not caught. So I feel like in this first couple of sentences, we could add something in there to really make sure that Hero is doing something that will make the reader believe that something is worth hiding, if you like. So Hero waited 10 minutes to make sure that the office was empty. Okay, but why and how? So when he was certain, he set to work. So let's start with this first sentence, because I think we could probably put a little bit more information in here. And again, we're starting the sentence with Hero, his name, or he, which happens quite a lot in this story. So we're going to get rid of the name, and we're going to start with the action. Oops. So waiting in the silent office space. No. Something like waiting in the office space. Hero strained his ears for any sounds of his co-workers, or something like movement or activity, maybe. Waiting in the office space, Hero strained his ears for any sounds of activity outside of his cubicle. Let's talk a little bit about how he's feeling and really put the reader into Hero's head, or at least into his experience. So, waiting in the office space, Hero strained his ears for any sounds of activity outside of his cubicle. So we've not put like 10 minutes or anything like that, because obviously 10 minutes is a very definite amount of time, and that removes the emotional aspect of this kind of thing. When we want Hero to be unsure of how long it takes because of the pressure that he's under, that kind of thing. So obviously this is heavily overwritten, but it's just the kind of thing that I'm just going to throw in. So the moment strung out for an eternity. Sat alone, that familiar itch in his... now, what was it called, Jim? What did you call it? You called it a Wi-Fi something or other interface. There we go. We'll keep using the word interface because then it's a bit of a brand recognition. So the moment straight out for it, Hero sat alone, that familiar itch in his Wi-Fi interface, growing stronger. The programs inside, eager to go to work. So there we've got a little bit of characterization for Hero, because we've already mentioned that his scar where his interface is itches when he's tense or when he's stressed, which obviously was how we worked in the fact that he has a Wi-Fi interface built into his head already. And then we're just mentioning again that he has these programs in there. We're kind of personifying them a little bit, which is always a nice little touch to show that something inside him is eager to be working, which will obviously give eagerness to the reader as well, because they will be eager to figure out what is going on. So what if Hero does something to check that the office is empty? So to make sure that the office was empty, Hero took a stroll to the... we'll not call it water cooler because this is sci-fi. We don't want to use the exact term. Water dispenser at the end of his row. Cast a glance around for the tops of any heads in the neighbouring cubicles. Now, there have been quite a lot of... I've misspelled that. That's my bad typing. There have been quite a lot of long sentences recently. So dropping in a nice short one just mixes up the flow. And this is obviously an assumption. It's inside Hero's head, so we know what he's thinking because he's the main focus, but it's a limited perspective. So he seemed to be alone, because as far as Hero knows, he is alone. If we were going to go for an omniscient view, then we would say he was alone, which is obviously a very different thing. Not only is it certain, but then it kind of reduces some of the fun and some of the tension if you know for sure that he is alone. So now, the first part of this reads, waiting in the office space. That probably needs some work. In the office space could really do with jazzing up a little bit, but it depends on the kind of terminology that Jim wants to use, really. So waiting in the office space, Hero strained his ears for any sounds of activity outside of his cubicle. The moment strung out for an eternity as Hero sat alone, that familiar itch in his Wi-Fi interface growing stronger, the programs inside eager to go to work. To make sure that the office was empty, that should probably be a comma, I think. Like I said, I am not a proofreader. I write and I edit, but I ask other people to proofread because they are way better at it than I am. But I think that should be a comma. To make sure that the office was empty, Hero took a stroll to the water dispenser at the end of his row and cast a glance around for the tops of any heads in the neighbouring cubicles. He seemed to be alone. Now, we can get rid of when he was certain, because we don't want Hero to be certain. We want there to be an aspect of uncertainty. That's why he's not certain, because he's uncertain. When he was certain, he's set to work. So let's have something change in Hero's demeanor here. So Hero moved like in a way that his co-workers would, as completely unlike the hero they knew. So this is similar to earlier on when Jim was mentioning that Jim straight up told us that Hero was a hacker and there was another side to his personality. But it needed like a little bit more finesse to it. So this time we're going to show that now that Hero is seemingly alone, his character changes. Hero moved in a way that his co-workers would recognize as completely unlike the Hero they knew. So I've used Hero twice there. So even as you're writing, you can edit as you go along. So we're going to put moving in a way that his co-workers would recognize as completely unlike the Hero they knew. He returned to his cubicle. So we need something in here. His footfalls light and hunched. What's the word I'm looking for? Straightened and lively. Okay, that needs work. There's a couple of ands in there, so let's read that back. Moving in a way that his co-workers would recognize as completely unlike the Hero they knew. His footfalls light. His hunched frame straightened and lively. He returned to his cubicle. So that's kind of, you've got a lot of movement in there. So here you're straight up saying that someone had set him a challenge to crack Zito Industries' security systems and gather their data. So let's put, it was time to go to Hero's true work. You see how this is going to be a short-term payoff because you're creating a mystery, but you're about to tell the reader what he's going to do. But that just creates a little tiny hook that gives you an instant payoff, kind of gives you a little bit of a dopamine kick when you're reading it. That's crazy, but it does. It does for me anyway. So moving in a way that his co-workers would recognize as completely unlike the Hero they knew, his footfalls light, his hunched frame straightened and lively, he returned to his cubicle. It was time to go to Hero. It was time for it. Maybe time for Hero. It was time for Hero to go to his true work. That's not bad. So someone online set him a challenge to crack Zito Industries' secured systems and gather their data. The challenger was known to Hero only as King Kaizoku 69. Jim challenging me to read these words. He'd set up digital ghosts so that he couldn't be traced. Right, okay, so that's quite a jump. That's a jump from exposition to straight up telling us what Hero has done. But we can do that in the action. We can do that in the moment. And we can give the reader a real sense of the sci-fi hacker-esque, that kind of neo-cyberpunk vibe that I'm getting from Jim's story. So, someone online had, again, apologies, someone online set him a challenge. So let's get rid of that. We don't need to know that someone had set in the challenge because we're about to see him do it. And we can reveal King Kaizoku 69 as the person who is receiving the file later. So the challenge was known to Hero only as King Kaizoku 69. So let's get rid of that. And I'm just going to move around this part about the digital ghosts. I think we talked about this in the last video. I think that's a really cool term, and I think it should probably go in with the hackbots part just afterwards. So we're going to, I'm just going to put King Kaizoku 69 down there so that I don't lose it. And I'm just going to copy and cut that part about digital ghosts. So again, it was time for Hero to go to his true work. I think we can probably characterize this a little bit more, as we've described him as being quite hunched in his demeanor. So, what if he slouching down into his, or even better, cranking his torturous work chair to a more comfortable position. So we see again that he's changing his demeanor, he's changing the character that he is, which shows that he's not necessarily a person that everybody thinks he is. Cranking his torturous work chair to a more comfortable position. Hero slipped the... Okay, so here, Hero's using some kind of analog card to slot into the memory slot in his terminal, which is obviously doing something hackerish. Hackerish? I don't know. I'm not a hacker. I don't know what these things are called. So, Hero slipped. I think what we should do with this one, Jim, is get rid of that card. Unless, like I said, I haven't read the rest of it, unless it's going to become important what is on that card, I think that Hero should probably be using the Wi-Fi interface that is built in, that you've made such a big deal of, and now we will see what it really does. So, how would he activate it? I'm going to leave that up to Jim. It's his story. When I was writing Oshibana Complex, the characters in that all have a similar thing, actually, to what Jim's going on with here. They all have a node just at the back of their ear there, which either glows blue or red, depending on whether they're on a company access or whether they're in their home network, if you like. And they actively tap that to change between the two. Obviously, I'm not going to make Jim do the same thing, so I'm just going to put Hero activated his interface. We don't necessarily need to use the term Wi-Fi interface every time. The reader will pick up what interface means. And we're going to put in how that feels for Hero. So we've got very much kind of a this happens, then this happens, then this happens flow to the story. So we want to know really what Hero's feeling, and we want to know how he's going about what he's doing. So make sure you work in that sensory information, you know, the old sight, sound, smell, touch, etc., etc. I think I'll put an extra space in there, which is going to bug my OCD if I don't get rid of it. So Hero activated his interface and felt his custom firewalls roar to life. Why not? It's electronic, obviously, but, you know, we want to give it some emotive language. Even though it's not actually a firewall, it doesn't hurt to use words related to fire to make sure that we really feel it. So, and felt his custom-made firewalls roar to life. Beyond them, huddled the, what is it? Digital ghosts. That Hero, ooh, dear me, terrible typing, Craig. There we go. Had preset, perhaps. So what are they? So let's put something like thin replicas of his online identity. And here we can put in what his online identity is, which we deleted earlier, I believe. And unfortunately, Jim, I have forgotten what it was. I'm really sorry about that. So I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to put hacker tag here. So basically, whenever it's something, any piece of information that I don't want to get carried away with. Maybe it's a street name if I'm in Victorian London or something like that. I just put it in square brackets because it means I can find those square brackets very easily, and I can go back and I can find that street name later without losing my writing flow. I think a lot of people do that. It's just something that I do. So, beyond them huddled the digital ghost that Hero had preset, thin replicas of his online identity, whatever that is. That would need any security countermeasures away from and spent Hero's delicate cerebellum. Nice technical word there, cerebellum. So there we are linking back to the previous section, which, if you can all remember, was about Densor 66. Hero had already been thinking about a story where Densor, I've realised I've just spelled Densor wrong. There we go. Didn't have protection in place, and his head went kaboom. So we're linking back into that again, and we're showing that Hero is not as daft as Densor 66. Actually, that's a thing I've just noticed that I hadn't noticed before, is that King Kaizoku 69 and Densor 66, both of those numbers being quite similar, although I'm sure that Densor isn't going to be a huge character, might just cause a little bit of confusion. Jim, you might want to change that number at the end of one of those. Probably Densor, because I think King Kaizoku 69 is evocative of what the character is going to be like. Potentially, whatever the character is like. So maybe change that number on Densor. But where were we? Beyond them huddled the digital ghost that Hero had preset, thin replicas of his online identity, or even his hacker identity. Just to let people really know what's going on, put his tag in there. That would lead any security countermeasures away from Hero's delicate cerebellum. So we don't want to fall prey to the same thing that Densor 66 did. And once those... So, what about... Because you can start a sentence with and. There's nothing wrong with it, but it should be used so sparingly. So if you can get away with it, try not to do it. Once those spectral forms had crept out across... Oops. You can see that I can't really type, can't you? Hero's interface. Next came the, let's say, methodical. So we're describing the different computer actions in different ways so that not everything is boring and binary, if you like. It's not just typical zeros and ones. This is a sensation that Hero is having. So Hero activated his interface, and we feel those firewalls roar to life. Then we have a spectral effect, which is very different, as the digital ghosts, forgot the name there, as the digital ghosts come out, and then we have a methodical, mechanical hackbots kind of thing coming out after that. Next, the methodical... Maybe, no, I think came was right. I'm going to put that back in. Next came the methodical progression of Hero's Hackbots. Hero's Hackbots sounds a little bit like a 1980s cartoon, and it is definitely one that I would have watched as a kid. That sounds sick. So once these spectral forms, or once their spectral forms had... Get that tense right, Craig. Once their spectral forms had crept out across Hero's interface, next came the methodical progression. Methodical might not be the right word. You could perhaps use mechanical or something like that, or something to show order. Progression of Hero's hackbots into his employer's computer systems. So just by adding that word, you can see that makes a massive difference to the sentence. Where we have Here we go. Oops. So just into the computer systems. Instead of that, we've added in his employers. Actually, that apostrophe is in the wrong place. So that is just a reminder that Hiro is hacking into his own workplace, which again increases attention and is just a little back of the head reminder for the reader. So after the first half hour of hacking, Hiro took a break. Okay, that seems like a very sudden thing to happen. Perhaps a little bit more description about what's going on there, Jim. So after the first half hour of hacking, I don't really know what hacking involves. And in this world, the reader doesn't either. So maybe just add something in there about the actual process. What does Hiro sense through his interface? How does that feel? But here he's finally looking out across New Tokyo. Maybe, is a suggestion, Jim, maybe don't put in the part about the first half an hour. Maybe this section could be, because we're in sci-fi, land where technological things happen. Not magical, technological things happen. Maybe once Hiro has activated his interface, all of these presets do the work for him. Why would he have to concentrate? He is in sci-fi land on Mars. So what if we get rid of him taking a break? With his what is the name of the corporation? I can't remember. I'm very sorry, Jim. Zito Industries. There we go. There it is. I knew it started with a Z. Right. With his preset, it was literally right under where I was looking for it. So with his preset where he's attacking the digital... Bastion's a great word. I love Bastion. Let's use that. With his preset where he's attacking the digital, helps if I can spell, digital Bastion of Zito Industries. Hiro sat back. What if he slouched back? Something like that. So sliding out into the aisle on his chair. So he's moving away from the computer. That gives a little bit of distance, lets the reader know that he doesn't necessarily need to be there and watching this happening. Sliding out into the aisle, on his chair, Hiro looked out across New Tokyo. Let's put this the other way around. Out of the... What is he looking out of? He's looking out of the windows at the end. That made up one wall of the office space. This is a good excuse to office space. I can't type, folks. I can't type. So this is another good excuse to tell us something about the room that he's in. And it also means that although we have already said that Hiro is looking out across Tokyo, we actually know how he's doing that. You could change that window to a vid screen or whatever you like, but as long as we know how he's doing it. So Hiro looked out of the windows that made up one wall of the office space and across New Tokyo. What about where the vista of New Tokyo glistened into the distance? All right, that's not great. I know that's not great, but you get what I mean. We're talking about what you can see out there, but we're not just saying he can see New Tokyo. We're actually describing that, and we're showing that it is kind of a glistening landscape. The reader's already got an idea of what that might look like. Because it's sci-fi, they're probably imagining things like neon lights and things like that. Let them do a little bit of the work, but give them the tidbit that points them towards it. So, drifting, because obviously this info blimp, I've not even read this sentence, I should read it first. So info blimp passed across the window advertising the latest servant bot built by Zito Industries. Good, because we've just mentioned Zito Industries, so that will help them to know what it does. So we've got info blimp passed across the window. That's absolutely fine. You could use drifted or something like that, something to really give you a sense of the movement. So drifting interview. I see Jim mentions a window there, so it is a window. An info blimp advertising the latest servant bot built by Zito Industries blocked Hero's view of his home for a moment before floating on. So you get the sensation that these things are moving around. There's a lot of movement in that one single sentence, which is quite nice. Got a bit of a flow to it. And then we have some exposition, which is not a bad thing because we've had a lot of interaction. We've had a lot of sensory information. It's not bad to drop a bit of exposition as long as it's not the only thing you're doing. So let's see how this goes. Drifting interview and info blimp advertising the latest servant bot built by Zito Industries blocked Hero's view of his home for a moment before floating on. Quite a long sentence, could cut that down. Nearly everything was built by Zito. Nice. Very simple exposition. Love it. So Hero's eyes were drawn up, perhaps, to the biosphere that protected the city. Tell you what, let's change this. So Z2 is supposed to floating on. From here, Hero could see many others. I love a good word. Let's put meandering. Meandering between the distant buildings, each showing another of Zito Industries. Whoops, I've added an X to that. That makes it even cooler if it's got an X in it. Each showing another of Zito Industries' many products. Now, that's just a slightly different way of putting exactly what Jim had already said. But here, we're putting in a fact about the world, so a little bit of world building, that there are a lot of these blimps, and we're also mentioning the exposition without just straight up telling people that that's what it is. We're showing them because Hero is watching the other blimps and what they're doing. Sorry for talking on the hand so much. So, Hero's eyes were drawn up to the biosphere that protected the city. Not sure that needs to be capitalized necessarily. There are a few instances in here, like info blimp, things like that, that maybe don't need capitalizing, Jim, but it's completely up to you. It's probably a stylistic choice. So roll with it if you want to roll with it. So Hero's eyes were drawn up to the biosphere that protected the city. The large triangular panels were a frenzy of swirling orange. Oh, nice. You can probably make that one sentence. So Hero's eyes were drawn up to the biosphere that protected the city. Its large triangular glass panels, a frenzy of swirling orange. So you see the difference there? So I've dropped the were, which kind of slows it down a little bit, and added the comma in earlier on, which makes the flow of the sentence completely different. So Hero's eyes were drawn up to the biosphere that protected the city. Its large triangular glass panels, a frenzy of swirling orange. See, that's different to the ands and the words and all that kind of stuff. Frenzy of swirling orange. There was a sandstorm outside the dome. So we could put a frenzy of swirling orange sand. That means that we can get rid of that sentence, which again is a straight up tell that doesn't necessarily need to be there. Or a frenzy of swirling of a swirling orange sandstorm, the swirling orange sandstorm, both work. It became lost in the random patterns. So instead of starting with he again, let's start with the action. So becoming lost in the random patterns. I'll tell you what, of swirling orange. So let's put the swirling orange there. Can you see how editing sometimes is a little bit like a puzzle, and you kind of got all these little pieces and you have to jiggle them around until they work? This is how I do it. So hero's eyes were drawn to the biosphere that protected the city. Its large triangular glass panels, a frenzy of swirling orange. That's great. I love that image. That's brilliant, Jim. Well done, mate. Becoming lost in the random patterns of the sandstorm. So that qualifies what happened before. You're not losing that really cool description, but then you're instantly telling the reader later why that's happening. Again, it's that nice imagery mystery, but it's got instant gratification because then the reader gets what it's about. So becoming lost in the random patterns of the sandstorm, I'm going to put so we're going to put why hero is sick of Mars. Could only think of them as another reason why he was so eager to leave Mars. Something like that. So there you're linking the things together. You're linking description and emotion, or description and what your character is thinking. So they're really, really coming together. If they bring them together in a sentence, usually it's brought together in the reader's mind as well. Obviously, following sentences after description and what the character is thinking work great. But, you know, if you can put them together into those compound sentences, that works really, really well. So let's read that little bit back again. With his preset warriors attacking the digital bastion of Zito Industries, Hero slouched back. Slouch, I'm going to as well, because I've realised I've sat up quite straight. Sliding out into the aisle on his chair, Hero looked out of the windows that, see, this is why it's good to proofread, that made up one wall of the office space, where the vista of New Tokyo glistened into the distance. Drifting into view, an info blimp advertising the latest servant bot built by Zito Industries blocked Hero's view of his home for a moment before floating on. From here, Hero could see many others meandering between the distant buildings, each showing another of Zito Industries' many products. Hero's eyes were drawn up to the biosphere that protected the city, its large triangular glass panels a frenzy of swirling orange. Becoming lost in the random patterns of the snowstorm, Hero could only think of them as another reason why he was so eager to leave Mars. I think that sounds pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm just seeing how much more we've got. Oh, cool. Okay. Quite a bit more stuff. As I said, I haven't read this beforehand. I am going in completely raw. That sounds horrific. I am looking at this for the first time. So, something clanked nearby, startling him. Nice. That's nice, Jim. So you've gone there from Hero's introspection to bang, something clanked nearby. I would say, however, drop the startling him. Go straight to the something clanked nearby. Hero shot around. So, Hero shot. Spun around. I know I've worked with a publisher recently who hates the word spun, but I use spun a lot. I probably shouldn't, but I do. Feel free to change that, Jim, obviously, and ignore everything that I've done. because it doesn't matter, it's all subjective, don't worry about it. So, something clanked nearby. Hero spun around, thinking he'd been caught. You see how that's changed from something clanked nearby, Hero was startled, Hero span around. It's just going straight from the bang, noise, bang, action, straight from one to the other. Something clanked nearby. Hero spun round, thinking he had been caught. You can probably get rid of thinking he'd been caught, because that's implied. And this is also speeding things up. So nice, fast, short sentences. Something clanked nearby. Hero spun round. Bang, bang. Hero spun round, searching the corners, the cubicles. Not even. Even slows it down. Windows for signs of an attacker, something like that. The fact that Hero's mind goes straight to that, I think will imply to the reader that that's the kind of mindset that he's in. So, something clanked nearby. Hero spun round, searching with an N. There we go. Hero spun around, searching the corners, the cubicles, the windows for signs of an attacker. So, corners, cubicles, windows, that three-part thing that I mentioned before. It also implies that he's kind of looking around all over the place, and it adds a lot of speed to the sentence. There was no one in the room with him. So, last time we mentioned how sometimes writing definites isn't necessarily a great idea. So I'm just going to put, he saw nothing. Or he saw no one. Oops. No one is always one of those words. I'm never sure whether it should be hyphenated or not. So, something clanked nearby. Hero spun around, searching the corners, the cubicles, the windows for signs of an attacker. He saw no one. That is a lovely little, oops, I've hit tab again, which I shouldn't have. That is a nice little paragraph all on its own. You've got that inciting sound, you've got that action, Hero looking around, and then he saw no one. That starts with action and ends with a dead stop. So that's a nice little paragraph on its own. So as he went to investigate, let's read it. The computer beeped that it had completed the first stage of the hack. Okay, so he's looked around, he's seen no one. I'm not sure whether he needs to go investigate, because the computer beep is going to bring his attention back to the computer again. So, but we need to have some kind of emotional reaction from Hero. We've seen his actions as he's been spinning around, but something, sorry, I have an itch on my head, something that lets us know what he's feeling would be great here. So let's put the computer beeped. Or what about if it wasn't the computer? What about if it's this interface that he has? If this interface is going to be an important thing to the story, and his Wi-Fi access through this illegal thing is going to be important to the story, we should probably do as much as we can through it, or at least make sure that we keep mentioning it. So what about, oh dear, I've clicked the wrong thing and opened up my history. There we go. I clicked the wrong, I held control and pressed the wrong thing. So, Hero's interface beeped, confirming that it had completed the first stage of the hack and bringing Hero's attention back to his terminal. So he was surprised that his avatars had broken in so far and that it had automatically begun saving files. So he was surprised is something that we can show. That's a bit of a tell situation where he was surprised. So what about if Hero's glasses are a big part of his character? So far he uses them and twitches with them and things, so let's go with that. Hero's interface beeps, confirming that he completed the first stage of the hack and bringing Hero's attention back to his terminal. So adjusting his glasses, he squinted at the, let's call it cascading files on the screen. And rechecked the progress of his, I'm going to say presets, but I've used that term a couple of times, but that could be programs or, no, hackbots. Let's use hackbots because that's a great name and we love that name, so let's keep using it. Progress of his hackbots. So about, let's keep personifying them. So instead of putting it, I need to remember to talk about what I'm thinking and what I'm doing when I'm doing this video. Let me just get that sentence back. So the avatars are broken in so far that it had automatically begun saving files. So let's personify them a little bit more. They have done swift work, already beginning to download, save the files. Hero had come to steal. So there, that is a tell. I know that's a tell. But it's been so heavily implied already that it's less a tell and more a payoff. So we already know that Hero is breaking into things that he shouldn't be. He's using terms like hacking and etc., etc. So we know Hero's up to something that he probably shouldn't be. Finally, we're just going to let the reader know that these are files that he is stealing. It's just a little kind of pat on the head, a little sugar lump for the reader, if you like, because they will already know that. They will have already figured this out for themselves, so that is just a little bit of a payoff back to that dopamine kick that people love so much when they read. So they've done swift work, already beginning to save the files a Hero had come to steal. So again, not starting with Hero or he, start with the action. Opening some of the files at random. Hero whistled between his teeth. Let's give him a new tick when he's surprised, because I think that's where this is going. So he whistled between his teeth when their contents were revealed. So I was just checking there that I had mentioned that they were files in the start of that sentence, so that the there had something to refer back to. So opening some of the files at random, Hero whistled between his teeth when their contents were revealed. That could probably be a semicolon, I think. I mentioned in the previous video, don't really know how semicolons work. I always do it wrong, but maybe that could be a semicolon. List of people whose names he recognized from the news reported as missing down on lists called kidnapped. Okay, that's a bit of a major giveaway. I think so early on, Jim, you could maybe, I don't know how the story's going to go, but maybe you could reveal that list of names is kidnapped people later on. That might be a nice little payoff later. Not a red herring, maybe a blue herring. Something just like a little tidbit for later on. Got timelines for people and drug trafficking. The secret operations of Zito Industries were laid bare. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. So, here was between seats where their contents were revealed. Lists of people. So, lists of names. Depends what the kidnapping is about, but I think putting lists of names next to inordinate sums of money. Timelines, sums of money. So let's start using some sci-fi, well, not sci-fi terminology, but let's use some computer terminology because we are in a heavily computerized society, it seems. So list of names next to inordinate sums of money. Let's hyperlink those to timelines and schedules of some kind of packages moving, freight, maybe. Let's call it interplanetary freight. I don't know how important this is to your story, Jim, obviously, because I've not read the rest. But obviously, if this is completely messing things up, change it back. But if all you're trying to do, which what I think you're doing, is just hint at the fact that Zito Industries is crooked as hell, then this should probably work. So list of names next to inordinate sums of money, hyperlinked to timelines and schedules, however you want to say it, of interplanetary freight. That in itself, names, money, schedules, freight. If people know that this is going to be some kind of criminal activity, your reader is putting together an image of what Zito Industries is. And then seconds later, you say the secret operations of Zito Industries were laid bare. You don't actually need the were there, I don't think. I'm just going to read it again, just to make sure that the flow's right, but I don't think you need the were. Lists of names next to inordinate sums of money, hyperlinked timelines and schedules of interplanetary freight, the secret operations of Zito Industries laid bare. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. Cool. So, troop deployments, death list, prostitution, rackets. He began to wonder what he may be getting himself involved in. The reader is as well. He quickly moved to stream the data straight to his employer. Okay, so yeah, I think that's okay. I think you can carry on with that list. I wasn't sure whether the troop deployments, death list and stuff was necessary, but yeah, I think it is, because this is the payoff as well, isn't it? You've let your reader assume that these people, these sums of money, this freight is all super dodgy, and now you're straight up telling them that they're right. So troop deployments, death list, prostitution, rackets. He began to wonder what again, that rule of three, he began to wonder what he may be getting himself involved in. Yeah, that's fine. I know it's a bit of a heavy exposition. It's a tell, but I think in the circumstances and with the flow of the story, that's a nice tell. I'd leave that in there. Not everything needs to be shown. This is the thing. So he quickly moved to stream the data straight to his employer. So he quickly moved, I would say, needs an interaction, like a description of how he does that. So he quickly moved. So accessing his interface, he swiped something that shows movement. He swiped the data straight to his employer. Let's call it his employer's stream. That's a nice term. Stream's a nice generic term that can mean pretty much anything, but it gives your reader an idea of how this stuff works. So it was dangerous. He understood the risks, but he'd begun anyway. We don't need that. Everybody knows, hero knows what he's up to. That's just a bit of a tell. We can get rid of that one. Because I think that your reader, Jim's probably figuring out right now that this is some bad stuff going on. So he activated a chat window to his employer's stream. Okay, yeah, so we can probably get rid of the chat window straight to his employer's stream. Typing King Kaizoku 69. what if we just put straight to his employer's stream, marked King Kaizu 69? Because then it's not he's hitting dial, he's sweeping it into a, it's got movement to it, and you know that it's moving towards that person. So hero could feel panic slowly creep across him. Ooh, yeah, that's pretty good. How? What does it feel like? So this is one of those show tell moments where you're telling your reader that he can feel panic slowly creep across him, but perhaps you could show what that feels like. He flicked his head from side to side, making sure that he was alone, is actually enough to show that he's still on edge. So let's just move that in. I don't know why my tab isn't working. I have no idea. But so let's go straight to flicking his head from side to side. Hero checked for the 100. Slight exaggeration. There you go. Time. Or thyme, which is a very different thing to time, I assure you. So flicking his head from side to side, hero checked for the 100th time that he was alone. That's starting to show his panic. He's still checking. He still doesn't feel safe. Let's drop that. Because the last time something beeped, it deserved its own start of a paragraph. So let's keep up with that, especially if it's something that needs to happen very quickly. So the chat window beeped. So here, beeped and a message appeared in Hero's head. I think for this one, Jim, it would be good if we know how his interface works. So if it is, I'm just going to put appeared in his head, but obviously if it's some kind of visual thing, is it a hologram or whatever, then obviously feel free to change that. So the chat window beeped and a message appeared in Hero's head or vision or whatever on his hand, whatever happens. He says waving his hand around. What? Okay, so this isn't being said, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. Sorry, it's my OCD. I'm tidying things up as I'm going along. Is it annoying you guys yet? It should be, because it annoys me. So, what? I would use the same rules for dialogue as I do for these chats. Something like, if you want to italicize them or put them in a different font. So this is kind of turning out similar to Oshibana Complex, which have those guys, as I said, have an axis that they tap on their neck, and they chat to each other, which appears inside their vision, kind of overlaid on what they can actually see. And with that, I did a different font. So I did a very 80s looking font, because that was kind of the vibe of the story, for when they were interacting with each other through messages, through text. And it lets the reader know that that's what's happening. And it's very different from the internal monologue, which is usually in italics. It looks completely different. So Hero typed quickly. So he's typing. So I'm not sure what he's typing on. Does he type through his terminal, or is he still analog? I'm imagining it's quite high sci-fi, but if it's not, Jim, then obviously add keyboards and things back in there, and that'll help. So we'll leave it as Hero quickly typed. I think that needs to be a colon. Here you go. This is how I do it. Other proofreaders and editors might do it differently. So Hero quickly typed, comment, here you go, because that's what's being said. That is also, there we go. And attached the downloading file. Probably don't need to hit send. It's kind of implied. That's a single O for that too. So the download only took 2 minutes to transfer to its new. So the download took seconds. If you're going for speed, let's speed it up. So the download took seconds to transfer to its new destination. Each second passed like an hour. Nice. Good. Well done, Jim. Nice. Well done. So the download took seconds to transfer to its new. Each second passing. So can you see the difference between past and passing? There's an immediacy. So past is past. Obviously, something has happened. Passing is happening kind of in the immediate past, if you know what I mean. I know there's terminology for all this, and I know there's like super complicated terms for all these tenses and stuff like that. But frankly, I never cared to learn them. It doesn't matter. If you get overly technical, you just kind of you kill the craft, if you know what I mean. So another thing is, I always believe in the if you can't explain it to somebody simply, then you can't explain it at all. So if you can explain it without terminology, then you're probably doing a better job. But that's just how I kind of explain to myself that I don't need to learn these things. I'm making an excuse basically to not learn any of the technical stuff. Yeah, I know, I'm a hypocrite. Shush. The download took seconds to transfer to its new destination, each second passing like an hour, as Hero's gut instinct roared that something was wrong. Ooh, yes, nice. So that's that evocative imagery I was talking about. This particular hack seemed all too easy, and that didn't sit well with him. Oh, nice. Okay, interesting. Maybe somebody's letting him in. All right. So that does two things. Increases a little bit of tension because could somebody be letting him in? Is somebody setting him up? You're not sure. But also, this particular hack seemed too easy implies that he's done this lots of times before, which is nice. It kind of builds up a little bit of character without really having to do it heavily. Here we go. So he'd gathered his belongings and waited for the data transfer to complete. When it did, it beeped twice. Okay, that kind of slows it down a little bit. Hero ripped the memory card from the computer terminal and bolted for the door. So we got rid of the card earlier. Obviously, like I was saying, Jim, if you want to keep it analog, keep those in, put that back in, and ignore me. But if you go in kind of high tech, then obviously get rid of the card. So he'd gathered. So what about gathering? Gathering kind of implies that you can take your time. So what about bundling his belongings? So swiftly. I'm pulling a lot of faces on this as well. I apologise. Or it's entertaining. I don't know. So bundling his belongings. So bundling his belongings. It wants to beep twice to cancel. Okay. Bundling his belongings as the interface beeped twice to confirm completion of the transfer. Hero swiped. So swiped his interface closed, or swiped off the connection. Swiped the connection closed, maybe. And hurried toward, not to find, because he knows where it is, because he works here. And hurried towards the nearest elevator. Don't necessarily need to know where it's going to with the parking zone. He'll find out when he gets to the bottom of the lift, and so will the reader. So, bundling his belongings as the interface beeped twice to confirm completion of the transfer. Hero swiped, the connection closed. The connection closed and hurried towards the nearest elevator. So those were a few different kind of explanatory sentences. And by combining them, all three of them together, throwing in some commas and speeding it up a little bit, we're showing his haste in doing these things. Okay, so basically a full stop slows down time, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. But a full stop does slow down the way that your brain reads something. A comma speeds it up. Don't go full Dickens and just have pages and pages of stuff connected by commas for the sake of speed, or in his case, the opposite effect. But if you want something to be happening swiftly, try not to stop yourself with full stops all the time. So, so what about taking one more glance over his shoulder, because that lets us start with an action and it shows us his paranoia. Taking one more glance of his shoulder. Hero pressed is fine. Jabbed, something that implies a harsh speed to it. Jab the button to call the lift. Oops, I keep hitting tab. It's force of habit. So what about dropping that? Because this is a clattering crash, so I'm guessing this is going to be another surprise. A clattering crash rang out behind him. Okay, yeah, that's good. And Hero... So instead of last time where we did the loud noise, stop, Hero did a thing, stop. I think this works really well, Jim, where you've kept it flowing with the comma. So a clattering crash rang out behind him. Hero threw himself against the lift doors. That kind of implies that he's throwing himself forward against it, though, if he's facing the lift. So what about if he spins around or something like that? The clattering crash rang out behind him, and Hero span around to face the room, implying that the room itself... and it's not spun, it's not span, it's spun. I know my grammar is rubbish, I'm sorry. A clattering crash rang out behind him and Hero spun around to face the room. Pressing his back against the lift doors. You don't need to say terrified of who may have crept up behind him, because you've just shown that he is. So a clattering ring rang out behind him, and Hero spun around to face the room, pressing his back against the lift doors. That obviously gives a very kind of hemmed in kind of imagery, so you don't need that last part. Sorry, fella. It's the old horror trope of the cat in the cupboard. It's not really anybody we need to worry about. Sorry, fella. Didn't mean to frighten you. It's the cart, see? It's got wonky wheels. It wasn't some thug or robotic sentry, just one of the floor's cleaners. Okay, cool. Hero could breathe. So Hero was basted in his own sweat. Ooh, nice. I like that. His heart raced. Let's put racing, because racing implies it's happening right now and it's still going on. As the lift doors opened and he fell in. Nice, that's good. A little bit of a slapstick release there. I like that. Scramble backwards into the lift. Let's put as the doors closed, not behind him, because he's just fallen back. I know it's finicky and I know it's really annoying, but if he's fallen backwards into the lift, then he's facing the doors. So he scrambled backwards into the lift as the doors closed. Okay, shuffling across. So we'll start again with shuffling across to the control panel on his knees. Hero hit the button for the parking zone and safety. Cool. Oh, I like that. Okay, so you've put a line break here. I think because we want to stay in the moment, and a line break to me normally implies quite a long passage of time. Not always. Again, it's a subjective thing. But I think we need to. You've built up a lot of tension with Hero here. We need to stay with him in the moment. So the lift finally made it, and he hurried to find his car. Okay. What if we add something in the middle here? So we've gone from all the tension of Hero spinning around and, the relief of it just being this guy, and then he falls into the lift and there's a lot of action going on. And then we've got the lift finally made it, which seems like a little bit of an anticlimax, a little bit of a come down. What about if we put some of that feeling into it again? So let's put in the cold metal vault of the lift. So that implies, obviously, vault can mean a few things. It can mean an open space, but it can also mean something that something is stored in or trapped in, implying that hero may be trapped in there. Cold metal, obviously, combined with kind of the heat and the movement and imagery previously, shows a switch of mode, if you like. And in the cold metal vault of the lift, so let's say is he going to calm down a little bit? No, he's going to hurry on. So Jim says he's going to hurry on, so we're going to keep that action up. So in the cold metal vault of the lift, hero tried to calm his pulse, to take a deep breath. I've used calm, to quieten his mind. Rule of three. But the sizzle and pop of his tired firewalls and spent hackbots kept him on edge. So that's kind of harkening back to, obviously, the things that he's used. It's insinuating that there's a connection between hero and the things that he uses. Again, it's personifying them a little bit more, making us care about the technology that he's using. And let's put, after an age of descending, the lift doors reopened to reveal the parking garage, I think. Parking zone. Parking zone is what you've used. To reveal the parking zone. The building's parking zone. Is just a little bit more descriptive. You know, it really pins down where hero was descended to. I don't know whether this is going to be in a basement or something. I'm imagining that kind of parking zone that you get in the American movies, you know, where it's underground under a huge building and then they kind of come out. But that's just the way that my head goes. So if you want to change that, Jim, to something more specific, then go ahead. Some mention that it's underground, you know, dark, dingy, that kind of thing. If you really want to pour that on. So, in the cold metal vault of the lift, hero tried to calm his pulse, to take a deep breath, to quieten his mind, but the sizzle and pop of his tired firewalls and spent hackbots kept him on edge. That's right. After an age of descending, the lift doors reopened to reveal the building's parking zone. He allowed himself a moment to breathe. Finally, Hero's had a rough night. He only finished work about an hour ago and he's had a rough night, so let's let him have a moment to breathe. He allowed himself a moment to breathe. He'd made it, but that uneasy feeling was still with him. Yeah, that's okay. That is a tell, but it's a good tell, and I think it fits really well with the rest of the story, Jim. So I think that's great. I'd leave that if I were you. The parking zone lights began to fluctuate and flicker. That's unnerving. Hero's unease turned into physical trembling, maybe. Hero's unease turned into physical trembling as he looked to the furthest wall at the end of the... maybe a different word than zone. At the end of the space. No. Yeah, space. Space is better. The lights then began to slowly blink. Oh, God, this is unnerving. The lights then began to slowly blink out one by one. Okay. The blackout stopped just in front of Hero. Okay, so you're going for that lights that we've seen in movies. Yeah, I love it when that happens. It's always creepy as hell. So what's going on here, Jim? What's going on? I want to know. Hero's knees turn his physical trembling as he looked to the furthest wall at the end of the space. So let's put where the lights began to blink out. Not slowly necessarily, because blink out one by one kind of implies that on its own. So then began to blink out one by one. So we're going from the lights beginning to blink out to the blackout stopping just in front of Hero. I feel like we need an extra sentence in there. Just something to, because this is a very visual thing. And although I can see it in my head and I know Jim can see it in his, I think just mentioning to the reader what effect those lights going out is having might be good. Even if it's just to confirm that the darkness is kind of spreading onwards. So, where the lights began to blink out one by one, the darkness reaching out toward him across the concrete. Something like that. So the concrete obviously gives us an extra detail about the room, which is always nice. We're personifying the darkness a little bit, which is always nice. And we're showing that as they blink out one by one, the darkness is spreading. The blackout stopped just in front of Hero. It's just a problem with the electrics, and that's all. Okay. So let's just fix this little dialogue tag there again. Just a problem with electrics, that's all. We'll put Hero said to himself. Actually, no, you were absolutely right, Jim. You were right, mate. Because you've mentioned Hero just here. You don't need to put his name twice in quick succession or quite so close together, so he does work better. It's just a problem with the electrics, that's all, he said to himself as he looked deep into the darkness. So you've used as, which is one of the things that should probably be used quite sparingly. So maybe we'll change that. He said to himself as he looked deep into the darkness. Oh, creepy. What about at first he thought it was a trick of the light. Sunspot left over from the piercing neon strips of the, I spelt that right, Jim? Zito Industry Building. So this is doing it a slightly different way. I'm going to readjust myself. This is increasing the tension even more. So that darkness has come on. What we don't want to do is reveal the red spots too quickly. We do, but we don't. It's a bit of a hedgy bets moment. So at first he thought it was a trick of the light. A sunspot left over from the piercing neon strips of the Zito Industry Building lets the reader know that something is going on, because they're like, what is a trick of the light? What is it? And it just kind of holds their attention a little bit longer. But then we instantly give them that gratification of telling them what you can see. But when they didn't disappear, oh dear me, that was a terrible spelling. When they didn't disappear, Hero knew that the pair of red lights which hung in the air ahead of him were very real. There we go. So we've kind of gone for a slight hold off on the payoff. So at first he thought it was a trick of the light, a sunspot left over from the piercing neon strips of the Zito Industry Building. But when they didn't disappear, Hero knew that the pair of red lights which hung in the air ahead of him were very real. His breath quickened. Good. That's a show, not a tell. That's brilliant. His breath quickened, and he realised they were looking at him. I won't say looking back. Ooh, yeah, looking back at him. Yeah, we'll keep that, Jim. That's a good one. Yeah. The sounds of scraping and clunking metal filled the parking zone. Oh dear, this does not sound good. Hero's gonna get shanked. The sounds of scraping and clunking metal filled the parking zone. Hero began to back away. Let's get rid of began to, because I feel like this is a very immediate moment. Let's just put Hero backed away. So it's happening right now. As the sounds moved nearer and quicker. Yeah, that's okay. We could use like more frequent or something like that, but it works as it is. Sparks blasted from the ground and 20 feet up across the parking zone's ceiling, accompanied by crashing and crumbling concrete. Ooh, concrete. I used concrete earlier as well. We must have had the same thing in mind, Jim. So, sparks blasted from the ground and... interesting. Okay, so maybe we can describe this a little smoother. I get exactly what you mean, though. So, sparks blasted from the ground and 20 feet up. What about to spread across the parking zone ceiling? So it bursts up from the ground 20 feet and then spreads across the ceiling, accompanied by... Oh, I see. I was going to say the crashing and crumbling of concrete, but accompanied by crashing and crumbling concrete obviously implies an explosion. The only problem with this is that Hero is now in pretty much complete darkness, or the red eyes were, so maybe he wouldn't be able to necessarily see by the sounds crashing and crumbling concrete. So he still can't see it. There's darkness, there are embers everywhere, sparks everywhere, and then he hears that crashing, crumbling concrete, but it's still dark. He still can't see it. He's still keeping that tension. He didn't take his eyes from the wall of black until he saw what came out of it. So it is still dark. He didn't take his eyes from the wall of black until he saw what came out of it. A large gorilla-like machine looked cramped. Oh, I see what you're going for there. Its confines wouldn't stop it, though. It howled a loud roar of electronic interference and looked onto its target, Hero. Run, Hero! Right. Before we find out if Hero runs or not, let's clean this up a little bit. So, he didn't take his eyes from the wall until he saw what came out of it. Implies that as soon as he sees the gorilla, he looks away, which I don't think Jim means at this point. So, he didn't take his eyes from the wall of black. Okay. And so he saw the hulking machine as it stepped toward him. Ooh, stepped. That's not a good word, Craig. Let's put lumbered towards him. Something heavy. So he didn't take his eyes from the wall of black, and so he saw the hulking machine when it lumbered towards him. Let's try. With his eyes fixed on the wall of black. You can see the difference there? So the with implies that it's happening right now as well. So his eyes are fixed on the wall right now. Not in a present tense way, but in a kind of intense, immediate past tense way. Again, technical terms, I don't know what they are. You guys probably know. Feel free to put it in the comments and let me know what it is. With his eyes fixed on the wall of black. Hero saw the hulking machine when it lumbered towards him. As it lumbered towards him. A large gorilla-like, I think that needs to be hyphenated. Not sure. A large gorilla-like machine. The the hulking, I'm going to put shape here, change that slightly because Jim's already used the word machine and I don't want to change that because it's very descriptive. So Hero saw the hulking shape as it lumbered towards him. Bit of tension again because we don't know what it is. A large gorilla-like machine. The large gorilla-like machine looked cramped. Under the low parking zone ceiling. Can you see how that cleans that up a little bit? I don't think I need to explain that one to you all. Its confines wouldn't stop it though. Not sure you need that bit. Looked cramped under the. What about its howl? So it's howl of electronic interference rather than it howled a roar. So howl and roar are basically doing the same jobs in those sentences, so you can drop one of them. It's howl of electronic interference. Shook Hero where he stood. That is just a little reminder that we're still with Hero. He's still the focus, even though this giant thing has just come out of the dark side. So it's howl of electronic interference shook Hero where he stood. And the machine's red eyes, linking back to the eyes that we saw before, confirming to your reader that that is what they could see. Tightened, maybe? Shrank. As they, I think that's supposed to be locked onto their target. Oops. And we're just going to put his name just as a single sentence all on its own because that really hits home. Oh, we're nearly at the end here. So let's start with the wailing. Again, wailing in panic. Hero ran back towards the elevator. This is another one of those sentences where I think we can probably string the sentences together with some commas to keep the movement going. So, wailed in panic, Hero ran backwards towards the elevator, crashing into the door and bashing the call button. I want to put with the flat of his palm. That's a slight change from him just pressing the button, which is kind of cool on its own, repeatedly pressing the button. But that panic of smashing his hand into the button, I think, kind of shows panic as well. It's just a personal flair thing. Again, completely subjective. Jim might want to put poke or something like that. So, wailing in panic, Hero ran back towards the elevator, crashing into the door and bashing the call button with the flat of his palm. I mean, Jim put repeatedly there, and I think that's probably good. So let's put that back in. So he's slamming on it. Like I said, I'm being a bit harsh on Jim here, and I'm changing things that I would personally change, just to show like the thought process and things like that. But none of these need to be changed. It's just purely subjective. So he spun around. Jim has used the correct spun there, which I don't do an awful lot. So well done, Jim. You're better than me. He spun around to see the metal monster barreling its way in his direction. Oh, God, no. I think you could probably get rid of its way. It's just barreling implies the movement, so you can probably get rid of that. And those smaller truncated sentences are always cool for swift action. He spun round to see the metal monster barreling his direction. Okay. So he bolted as fast. So Hero is not waiting for the elevator. He's going to try and run away. Okay. So let's just read that back. Wailing in panic. When I edit a lot, because you want the flow to be right, I jump back to the start of the paragraph an awful lot. You've probably noticed this by now. Because you want the whole thing to flow. Each individual sentence doesn't make is no good on its own, So wailing in panic, Hero ran back towards the elevator, crashing into the door and bashing the call button repeatedly with the flat of his palm. He spun around. Not sure there. That's a grammar thing that I'm not sure about, so you might want to check that, Jim, with someone who knows better than I do. He spun around to see the metal monster barreling in his direction. So the last thing that was mentioned is the monster. So we want to make sure the robot creature thing, gorilla guy, whatever. So we want to make sure that the reader doesn't think that he bolted as fast as he could. He's talking about the monster. So we are going to do that good old starting with the action. Or, tell you what, let's tell them why Hero is going to bolt off to the side. Gave up on the elevator, knowing that it would be too slow to save him. Something like that. So we know what's going on in his head. That's an okay tell, again, because this is quite fast action and we want to just know what he's thinking and then move on. Hero gave up on the elevator, knowing that it would be too slow to save him, and bolted. So as fast as he could is implied by bolted. So along the wall. Let's put following the wall. Parking zone wall. Searching for any way to escape. So Hero gave up on the elevator, knowing that it would be too slow to save him, and bolted, following the parking zone wall, searching for any way to escape. So that in one sentence, we've gone from what he's thinking to what he's doing and why he's doing it. Hero foolishly thought that turning the corner would be enough to slow it down, but all it did was cut its way through. Right, so the it, we need to reiterate what the it is, because we've lost track now, because now we're flitting between two characters. We need to make sure that the reader knows who we're talking about at any given moment, which obviously makes things a little more complicated. So I think that Hero foolishly thought gives away that it's not going to work too early. You're not keeping the tension up there. So Hero, I'm just going to put Hero turned the corner. The corner implies that the reader should already know that there is a corner, and they don't. So turned a corner. Hoping that the machine would slow down. Maybe give him a chance to get ahead. So there's two ways you can do this. It depends on personal preference. Sorry, my eye twitches when I use a computer tool. So Hero turned a corner, hoping that the machine would slow down and maybe give him a chance to get ahead. You can either drop a full stop in there. So we finish with Hero's thought and then we hit the but, or you can leave the comma in and keep that sentence going, keep that action moving. Either way, I think it would work nicely. So Hero turned a corner, hoping that the machine would slow down, maybe give him a chance to get ahead. But all it did... okay. Let's get rid of that all it did. But the machine... so punch is obviously quite a harsh thing to do. So the machine punched through the parked cars. I'm going to say, because you've got crushing them or sending them, the thems kind of slow things down. So what about crushing and so Hero turned a corner, hoping that the machine would slow down, maybe give him a chance to get ahead. But the machine punched through the parked cars. The concrete. Oh, no, that was my mistake. But the machine punched through the parked cars, crushing and tossing them, and pounded its way through the concrete pillars without slowing. So you can see now that Hero's skidding around a corner. To be fair, we can put skidding instead of turned, which would probably be so Hero skidded around a corner, hoping that the machine would slow down, maybe even chance to get ahead. But the machine punched through the parked cars, crushing and tossing them, and pounded its way through the concrete pillars without slowing. So we've got a bit of a list of things going there, but they're all linked together, from Hero's idea of skidding around a corner and hoping that he can get away from this thing, to this thing just powering on through and ripping everything to pieces in like a nice piece of action there. So Hero ran until he hit a dead end. Okay. He backed away and turned to see the huge mechanical hulk loom over him. It roared its electronic screech again. Okay. What's going to happen here? Let's keep reading. He tried to shout out for help, but silence was all that left his lips. Nice. Before the monster's hand swatted him head first. His life splattered across the parking zone floor. The beast returned to the darkness. Oh dear! Right, let's see if we can tighten this up and make that super, super, super cool. It is already super cool, Jim. By the way, that is absolutely brilliant. That's really nicely written already, but a couple of word changes might just make it really tighten it up. So sometimes editing is just being about being super finicky and ripping apart your own work. It's always easier to see things that you can change in other people's work, not so much in your own. That's just kind of a given. So let's see if we can change this last section a little bit. So Hero ran until he hit a dead end. Okay. What about Hero's plan failed him? When he hit a dead end. I was going to put in the corner of the parking zone or something like that, but no, I don't think you really need that. Hero's plan failed him when he hit a dead end, and all he could do was back away. So if he's going to back away, he would have already turned. And again, I know it's being finicky, but your action kind of needs to follow the normal steps. So what we don't want readers to go, wait, he's backing away. Now he's turning around. So Hero's plan failed him when he hit a dead end, and all he could do was back away. So what about all he could do was back away as the huge mechanical hulk. We don't need huge and hulk because it implies the same thing. So was back away as the mechanical hulk loomed over him. It roared its electronic screech again. So roar and screech are kind of at cross purposes to each other, screech being a high sound, roar being a low sound, usually. So what about just it roared electronically? Something like that. That's not great, but it's close. So it roared electronically. Now we're back to Hero again. So we need to make sure. I think this should all really be one paragraph because it's the last one, and everything's linked together. So we didn't really need to drop another paragraph there. Hero's plan failed him when he hit a dead end, and all he could do was back away as the mechanical hulk loomed over him. It roared electronically. Hero's back hit the wall. So now he's been backing away and he's finally hit the wall. That will let your reader know that there really is nowhere else to go. And he tried to shout for help, but silence was all that left his lips. Yes. You can actually probably start a new sentence there. Hero's back hit the wall and he tried to shout out for help, but silence was all that left his lips. The monster's hand swatted him head first. So I'm going to leave that as him. I was just about to change it, but then I changed my mind. So the monster's hand swatted him head first. And I'm going to change that to Hero's life rather than his. Just because this is the last time, I'm guessing, we're going to see Hero, and we should really feel that it's Hero's life that is being snuffed out. It's a person, it's not just a him. I know that sounds crazy, but it does make a difference. So let's read this whole last paragraph again. Hero's plan failed him when he hit a dead end, and all he could do. Let me start again. Hero's plan failed him when he hit a dead end, and all he could do was back away as the mechanical hulk loomed over him. It roared electronically. Hero's back hit the wall, and he tried to shout out for help, but silence was all that left his lips. The monster's hand swatted him head first. Hero's life splattered across the parking zone floor. The beast returned to the darkness. That is a really good ending, Jim. Well done, mate. Well done there. I thought Hero was going to be the main character. I thought he was going to be with us for a while, but apparently not. As you can see, chapter 2 is just at the bottom of the page there. But I'm not going to go on to chapter 2 just because these videos have got quite long already. I hope that's been useful for everybody. Again, that old caveat of everything I've just done is completely subjective. It's only the way that I would do it. It's only the edits that I would suggest. And I've actually gone an extra step here by actively changing it, which I normally would not do. I would normally suggest the edits in the comments and let the author do it themselves. But Jim has nicely offered to let me edit it as if I would edit my own work. So I hope that's been useful to everyone out there. Jim, let me know. Let me know if that was useful or if I've just ripped your story apart and broken your heart. I hope I haven't. But please do let me know and tell me off if I have. If you all have enjoyed this video and you want to see more edits similar to this, then please do let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon, as I'm going to set up a new thing for patrons where they can submit their stories, and their stories are the ones that I use in these videos. So please do sign up and you'll be able to submit your stories and I will edit them for you. So thank you so much, everyone. I apologize for saying so much, and I will end this video there, and I will see you all soon.